everyone, and welcome to our second edition of the new season. Now, we're in very strange and scary times at the moment, and we're going to be addressing the effects that coronavirus is having on our wonderful sport. One of those effects is that I'm not actually in the studio. So if you're watching this on YouTube and you're thinking, where has that voice come from? Mags and Sarah, give them a wave right now. I am there, aren't I? There's a photo of me there.
Yeah, it's rather scary. It's a bit Hannibal Lecter-ish, this picture that we've got of you.
The mask that they've put on me over at Netball Nation looks bizarrely like it is actually on my face, although it has been superimposed. So I'm in self-isolation, but Mags and Sarah are there keeping it all afloat. So thank you for that, guys. How are you both before we crack on?
Yeah, good. Well, okay. It's weird, isn't it? It's such a weird time.
We are certainly living in very weird times, and we hope that we can offer you some kind of escapism, whether you're listening while working from home or during self-isolation. We're here to talk all things netball, to bring some familiarity to so much uncertainty. So we are here for you. Now, remember to mark the start of Netball UK powering Netball Nation. We're offering Netball Nation listeners and viewers 10% off everything, and the timing couldn't be better to get your home setup sorted. Just use code NATION10 at netballuk.co.uk, but hurry up because it ends today. So you can see all the T's and C's at www.mynetballnation.com. Now then, in these strange times, we have so much to get through. First off, of course, the C word, coronavirus. Whoever you are,
I was a bit worried then.
I thought you might be, Mags. Whoever you are and wherever you are in the world, this pandemic is taking hold. It's had a massive impact on sport, including netball. Now, we know there's so many disappointed netball players and fans out there just desperate to have the sport back, but prevention is our priority right now, as is being kind to each other and taking care of each other, and those particularly who are most vulnerable. Now, we're going to be discussing how it's affected our sport, what it means for the future, and what you can do to stay in shape and still play even during quarantine. Now, we also have a special guest coming up to speak to us as well, so looking forward to that. Right, 2 round 4 Super League matches were able to take place last weekend. We're going to be discussing the outcomes of those. The National Schools Finals also took place as planned, and there was some quality netball on show as well. And finally, New Zealand's ANZ Championship returned for the first round of fixtures, and there were some tight games there, so plenty to get stuck into for us. Now, the coronavirus has had an impact on netball at all levels, with grassroots to Super League fixtures all cancelled. It is a worrying time, but England Netball have put the netball family health at the forefront of their decision to suspend all netball until at least the 30th of April, with other netball organisations around the world making similar decisions. Now, as I mentioned at the top of the pod, we have a special guest joining us today. So, ladies, a warm welcome, please, to Claire Nelson, CEO of Netball Scotland.
Ooh. Oh, welcome.
Hi, Claire.
Amazing. Hi. I hope people aren't disappointed with that build-up when you're saying a special guest today.
Claire, you are
thinking it was Rach John.
Claire, it's great to have you on the show. Thank you so much for joining us. First up, I've got to ask you, what's the mood like up in Scotland in the current climate?
Do you know what? It's actually strangely positive. I have to say, the way my team here has mobilised to just become a whole new workforce with a completely different infrastructure, turn this organisation on its head to now delivering completely different member services, and do all of this while cancelling and trying to look after their own health. They've been amazing. And what I think we're all finding is actually the netball community is coming together, and there's so much solidarity, so much collaboration, and people are just really trying to find the positives through all of this. So at the moment, the mood is good. What that'll be like maybe in 4, 5, 6 weeks of everyone being at home, I don't know. So I think actually we're really going to have to start focusing on people's health and well-being in the coming weeks. But at the moment, we're all good.
I think you're right, Claire. I think there's been this bizarre thing of, although we're all sort of social distancing, there's a real sense of togetherness. Have you found that, Mags and Sarah?
Oh, God, Mags is throwing it to me. Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think after the kind of initial, people panic buying and just kind of showing the worst side of human nature. I think now people are realizing, actually this could be a bit of a longer haul, and looking after each other a lot more, like, community schemes where people are doing the shopping and chores and jobs and things for vulnerable people is just really nice to see. And the netball community, always pulls together in difficult times, and it's great to see, people connecting from around the UK but also around the world in terms of trying to help each other out, and in a netball sense, keep each other going.
Yeah. And Claire, you mentioned as well when you were chatting about it that, you've had to adapt and change the services. What is your prerogative then now? What are you doing?
So, I mean, in the space of a week, we've gone from, look, we think this might be something we need to think about, to having shut down a national organisation, a Sirens franchise, cancelling all of our national competitions, cup finals, school cup finals. We were doing a local association consultation. We've done all of that to actually what's our new normal. And for us, it's about, we have a really amazing opportunity as a sport here. And I've been saying this for a long time, and I think this is probably just forcing us to sort of face these opportunities a bit quicker. We are an organisation that deals with women and girls, and we have a huge opportunity now across the UK to provide a service which actually speaks to our member audiences. That yes, they're players and they're coaches, but they're people, they're mums, they're daughters, they're people trying to get through this. So what we're looking at doing is, yes, keeping our education going, looking at how we can keep people engaged through coaching workshops and umpiring workshops. But actually, we're going to look at crafts and entertainment and well-being and meditations, and creating a community that keeps people active, healthy, mentally and physically, that provides up-to-date information, that becomes a one-stop shop for everything, that means we get through this and come out the other side happy, healthy, strong and connected.
Oh, I love that, Claire. That's a great idea. I mean, it is known as well that Netball Scotland handled the evolving coronavirus situation quite differently to England. Scottish governing bodies made decisions a bit quicker to halt elite sport in front of 100 people or more before last weekend, and then, of course, later a total suspension. What was your involvement in that decision? And do you think, in your opinion, Claire, were England Netball too slow to act on it?
Look, all I can do is act in the best interest of my sport and our people. And those decisions were made in consultation with my team, my board. But ultimately, as the chief exec, I had to make those executive decisions. So on Thursday, we pulled an entire team meeting together. And I said, we were having a team meeting anyway, but we were talking about strategy and future plans. And we overtook it with coronavirus contingency planning. We had 2 or 3 different scenarios ready to go. And then when Nicola Sturgeon and Boris Johnson came out and said, look, it's largely going to be business as usual, but we're going to look at reducing mass gatherings and so on, we thought, okay, well, we'll get through our competitions at the weekend. What we realised is, despite what the government is saying, people are reacting exactly how they're going through this in the moment. And they were scared. They still are scared. So despite our best efforts to have some controlled measures in place, we realized that people didn't want to come together and be in an environment that they felt nervous about. And so I had to think, can I ask people to do that? Am I confident that I know it's going to be okay? And no, because in all of this, yes, I have a job as a chief exec, but I'm a human being who's receiving this information at the same time as everyone else and trying to make these decisions. So on Saturday, we did make the decision to suspend all netballing activity across Scotland. And I tell you something, I will live and die by that decision. It was the right thing for us to do. Every decision I've made has had people at the heart of it and has been based on, for me, can I sleep at night? Can we live with this decision? Can you look people in the eye? But with that, we were keeping Sirens slightly separate because we were like, well, we can hopefully still play our game. And as Saturday went on, I just thought, we as a business cannot be inconsistent in our message. So Sarah Jones at Welsh Netball was completely supportive of that approach. We spoke to the league, and the league made their decision as well that was supportive around, round 4 not continuing. So as a league, we've all come together and we've made decisions collaboratively. How England Netball or any other sport or organisation runs their business, I am not going to comment on. It is my job to protect our members, and I feel that we acted at the right time in the right way for our people.
Yeah, and like you say, the health and well-being of everybody is far more important than anything, particularly in the current climate that we're in. I've got to ask you then, Claire, what's your message and advice to netballers from sort of grassroots to the highest level, in it, like at the moment?
Well, at the moment, sport and netball, but all sport, it represents the best of everything. It's keeping physically active. It's our escape from kids or home. It's what makes us feel good about ourselves. And I think that missing out of our lives, we're going to feel that gap. So I think what I would like to say is stay positive. Let's see this as some kind of opportunity. And I know that sounds like a difficult thing to hear when people's lives and health is at risk, but I have this philosophy that every time a challenge is thrown at us, and we have to look within it and see what that diamond is. And for me, this is a chance to reconnect. It's a chance to just get some downtime. For us as a sport, we're going to look at how we can innovate and plan, and perhaps even create an even more exciting future for our sport, for our members. But also, just, it will be okay if we just follow the guidelines. We'll come through this. What I really want to do, though, is say, please stick with us. We've had this amazing start to the Super League season. In particular, we had an amazing first game. We've seen across the league heightened engagement with our league. We've seen more bums on seats. Well, we are going to need that more than ever to survive and come through this. So just look after yourselves, have some fun, but when we come out the other side, let's be even more of a stronger, more vocal, connected community so that we can keep this sport going.
Absolutely. And of course, the financial repercussions on the whole country, really, it's taken its toll. I've got to ask you then, what are you doing to try and support coaches, clubs, players who might actually suffer financially from the postponement of leagues and training sessions?
Yeah, well, our staff and players has been our priority for number one. Anyone that earns a living through Netball Scotland, Sirens, or our sport, we have ensured that they will continue to do so. So every member of staff, we have a plan across there, and then across our players, I have communicated directly with them. They've been informed of every decision, and we actually have a bit of a matrix of everyone's personal situation. Where are they living? How do they work? What's their family setup? So that we can ensure that everybody has got their support system. We've let Natalie go home. She wants to be with her family in Australia. So we've had one-on-one conversations with every single person, every coach, player, and member of staff that we have a responsibility to. Outside of that, we are working with our clubs, our local associations, anyone that may run into a little bit of difficulty as a result of this, and we will put plans in place to support them. So, we came up with the hashtag for Sirens at the start of the season, everybody in, and it has never meant more than it does right now. And everyone that is a member of our organisation, we have a responsibility to help them through that. And the financial implications are a concern. I'm sitting trying to map out how we get through this, but this is where we rely on our sponsors and partners to help us through that as well. And, if we need to shut things down and cut some of our costs in the short term as well, we'll do that. But we don't want anyone to be emotionally impacted by what coronavirus is doing to us at the moment.
Mags and Sarah, that's exactly the kind of attitude you want to hear towards this, isn't it?
I think it's commendable, and the actions of Netball Scotland have to be applauded. I'm just wondering, is this everything that you're telling us now, Claire? Has that been put out somewhere so that your community is aware of that? Because a lot of what you've just said to me is news, but I think it's positive news that should be shared. Not just countrywide, nationwide.
We've got really good comms going out to all of our members. We've set up a Corona COVID-19 portal on our website, which I never thought we would have. Even every single out of office for the last week, consistently across our business has all the lines of information and communication across there. So I'm hoping that our members are aware that we're doing this. We sent out comms yesterday to say that we were going to be creating this new engagement strategy. But at the moment, I suppose we're trying to communicate as best we can, but we're also in the thick of just trying to make sure that every person is looked after, every process is in place. that everyone's informed so that we can then start to move into this new way of working. But I have to say, I think what we're doing has been picked up. I've been contacted by 2 or 3 other sports in Scotland looking for advice. I've been contacted by a couple of other organisations. Partners have picked up on what we're doing. So, it's all new to us and we're sort of finding our way in the dark. But I think, it has been seen that we've had a fairly robust approach to reacting and adapting to this.
It certainly sounds that way, Claire, and like Mag says, it's commendable. Now, before you go, let's talk a little bit about Sirens, who've had 1 win and 2 losses so far this season, with patches of great play, but not enough consistency. Would you agree with that? And what are the aspirations for the season once it starts up again, Claire?
Yeah, those first 2 games were a little bit frustrating for us, but they showed the flashes of what we knew was in this team. Look, I went into the season and I wanted 2 things. I wanted happy players playing their best netball. For me, I don't feel that I have seen our players really deliver against their potential over the past season. So bringing Karen Atkinson in, and she's amazing. I'm actually taking tips from her at the moment about how to entertain kids, because that's my next challenge over the coming weeks. But just really looking at that culture, the leadership, the direction of the team with Leslie McDonald. What I wanted to see was consistent execution and players playing well. And we finally got that in Storm. So for us to have that game gave the players the confidence and what we all know is in there. It was really excellent execution for anyone that watched the game. I think we all said it's the best netball we've seen a Scottish team play in a really long time. But to do that in front of a packed crowd, new partners, our off-court proposition is the best in the league. It's then really frustrating that we get a stall to that, but it shows though what we're capable of, and what I'm hoping is that we get to be able to get back on court and deliver more of that. But for us, we're in this for the long haul. This year was about just improving our programming and getting that consistency, and then look to build so that we can hopefully in the not too distant future start to challenge for a top 4 spot.
Exciting time. Sorry, you sounded like you wanted to say something then.
No.
When I started, I thought I heard
Don't
you.
try and drop me in it, Emma. Just sitting here politely being quiet.
I thought I heard a Sarah huff and a puff as I started asking you that question. I was like, oh, she wants to chip in here.
No, I wasn't just obviously losing fitness, just come up the stairs.
Well, if anyone's got any tips on how Sarah can keep fit during this time of social distancing, please do let us know. Look, Claire, we will not keep you any longer. Thank you so much for coming on to Netball Nation. Look after yourself. Keep doing what you're doing. Like we say, it's extremely commendable. And also, best of luck with your kids, entertaining them for the next foreseeable.
I need it. Homeschooling. Thanks very much, guys. Keep up the good work.
Thanks, Claire.
Thank
Take
you,
care.
Claire Nelson there, CEO of Netball Scotland. Thank you so much for chatting to us there. Now then, we move on because we've had a couple of tweets from Hazel, who loves to listen to the pod in the car after a busy shift working for the NHS. So,
shout out to Hazel and all the NHS workers, first of all.
Big them up.
Great job on them.
Absolutely, yes.
Can I just also throw in, while we're talking about the NHS, my sister-in-law, she is the infection control nurse within a local hospital, and she is flat out. So I just want to big up her as well.
Yeah, shout out.
Yeah.
What's her name, Max?
She's called Susan Hygo, and she works at the Huddersfield Royal Infirmary, and that is her role. And she is literally dragged from pillar to post with what's going on because of her specialism.
Do you know what? Shout out to Susan and every single NHS worker out there. We here at Netball Nation salute you, and we're extremely grateful for all of your efforts right now. Now, we want to answer all of your questions as well. So if you are listening to us for a bit of escapism, like Hazel is on your way home from work or whatever, just make sure that you do send in any questions and we will answer them as soon as possible on the next podcast for you. Now, Hazel wants to know how Super League clubs are keeping players fit, and also how grassroots netball is going to get back to fitness once all of this is over. Sarah, obviously, as a head coach, this is a tough time for you and your players, not knowing when you're going to be playing. That's got to be tough to manage. How are you advising them to stay fit, sort of physically and, of course, mentally? Because that's equally as important.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the bigger part of it at the minute. The physical stuff is difficult because it's likely to change week on week. At the minute, some people can get into gyms. Gyms are slowly closing now. So then programs will go completely outdoors pretty much. And then it's likely that it goes indoors at some point. So week on week, we're sending kind of different options out to our players of what they can do and different sessions that they can do, because I think part of it is just not getting paralyzed by the unknown, like, oh, this isn't my usual routine. What session do I do? And so by giving players options, that's really helpful. I think it's been mentioned, a lot on social media, but some of the elite players are doing a great job of just getting content out there. Sasha Corbin with her solo sessions, Laura Malcolm with Maya's netball, Yaz Parsons, all putting pretty much daily workouts out there. So especially, we're going to rip some off, but cheers, girls. But especially for, grassroots players and junior players, there's lots of content out there that, you don't even have to think. You can just follow along. You can join in their session with them. And I think that's a great idea to kind of still feel connected to that community as well. But like I was saying, I think the mental part of it is the bigger thing. And so we've got lots of different stuff we're putting into the week in terms of, team video chats, like movie nights, social media challenges, cooking challenges, all sorts of random stuff that's not really that much to do with netball, but as a team and as individuals, it's really important that we stay connected and we stay positive and social as much as we can.
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't all have to be about netball, does it? Like you say, it's just about the team ethos and about people knowing that they have people out there. Go on, Mags. It sounded like you were going to speak then.
No. I'm happy to. At a lower level to what Sarah's talking about, we as a coaching team at Rhinos have also had to have the same sort of discussions. And collectively, we've decided to focus on the same things as Sarah's done. We might, with pride, take some of the stuff that we've seen online. We're also going to pull together some mindfulness and some gratitude stuff because we want to make sure that everybody stays in contact and they think about the good things that are going on through the day. For as much as this coronavirus is trying to rip us apart, there's still really good things going on through your day. So we're kind of asking our girls to think of 3 things that they're grateful for every day. And if they're willing to share that with everybody within their age group, then, that would be great. And it might just pep somebody else up. And we're also putting together training packages, very much like every other franchise is doing, because it's great when this starts right now, but will we still have the same enthusiasm in 5-6 weeks' time? And it's just making sure that we remember that we're going to have to keep this going for quite some time. So, yeah, everybody in the netball world, thanks for putting themselves out there, sharing their stuff so that everybody benefits.
Yeah, and I know that, like, in our academy as well, I think that they're basically keeping the session times, and doing a session all together by video link or whatever, but at the time, like the day and time of the week that they'd normally have a session. So there's still a small element of routine to people's lives.
Yeah, because I think that is a lot of it, isn't it? It's when your routine gets thrown out. Like you were saying earlier, you kind of go, what do I do now? What am I supposed to be doing?
Says Emma sat in her pyjamas at 11 o'clock.
I'm speaking from experience. I've not moved.
Sorry, that is your normal routine though, right, Em?
Yeah. I mean, the most I've done in the last 4 days is burnt some healthy cookies. I won't be making that
Yeah, I
mistake
saw that.
again.
You massacred them.
Ew.
Yeah, I know. They weren't blueberries in them, by the way. Those big black things. They were raisins that had almost exploded in the oven. But anyway, Mags, that was a really nice thing that you mentioned there about 3 things you're grateful for. So get your thinking caps on, because before the end of today's podcast, I'm going to ask you pair for 3 things that you're both grateful for so that you can inspire other people, okay?
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, Sarah.
I can't think and speak at the same time.
Well, there'll be a pause occasionally when I'm talking.
Good.
There's your thinking time. Also, this is good as well, because our Netball UK, our sponsors, tweeted on Tuesday that our netball post sales went through the roof today, proving netballs are being proactive. So this is very good to know. Keep that up. Right then, very heavy start, understandably, to that. We needed to cover that because it's important to everybody inside and outside of the netball world. But a very necessary topic to discuss. We're keen to make things a little more lighthearted now and chat about some good netball news. 2 Super League games went ahead at the weekend, with Thunder keeping their 100% record so far this season after gritting their teeth and seeing off a determined Surrey Storm 60-42. Sarah, the defending champions are looking extremely strong in their first 4 games. Do you see that continuing after the break? And if so, what are teams going to have to do to stop them?
I don't know, maybe send all the players some really good cake recipes or something.
I'd offer help, but I
know, not you, Emma, not you. No, they have looked good at the beginning of the season. I think what's been interesting is we've not kind of played enough to really get a sense of who would make that top four up and who would be favourites. I think, Thunder have looked good, but they've also been exposed at times. And I think teams generally tend to learn more during a season. And so the second round of games, you kind of get reverses of score lines because they've learned more. And then other teams, have been much more up and down. And I think it was shaping up to be a really interesting first half of the season because of the inconsistencies and because of some of the surprises of different teams. But yeah, I mean, Thunder, they just bring a sort of level of ruthlessness that is always there and always consistent and always difficult to beat.
Max, what are your thoughts on that? What do you think other teams are going to have to do to break them down?
It's a difficult one, really, insofar as they've managed to maintain the core of their squad, who are very used to playing with each other. They're familiar. The style of netball that they play at Thunder is typically really difficult to break down. And as a consequence of that, there's been a few teams that have pushed them. Sarah's team pushed them and nearly turned them over. And as honest as Sarah is, she's made it clear herself. The game was theirs to take, and unfortunately, Thunder just closed it out. So it's A-game stuff. Thunder are in form. Let's see what happens when, they come up against Bath, who are also in form.
Yeah, we shall see. Well, the second game was Seven Stars hosting last year's runner-up Wasps. Not a result a lot will have predicted, with Stars picking up their first win of the season. Now, Wasps just didn't
I'm
seem
going
to
to
be
my
on
pocket
the money.
now.
There's nothing in there, Max.
Bit of
Go
dust.
straight in the kitty.
Dust and fluff.
Wash just didn't seem to be on the money, and Stars were inspired by brilliant shooting from Georgia Rowe, who shot at 98%.
Wow.
Incredible that. What is not quite working for Wasps then, do you reckon, Max?
Oh, gosh. We've just discussed the fact that they've come up against, they came up with the first game against Thunder, who were in form in that first game. I think have they played Bath as well? Yeah, I think they
they
have.
played Thunder, Bath, Mavericks.
Mavericks.
They've had a really tough start to the season.
They have had a really tough start. And as a consequence of that, teams have done the homework on them. They know their strengths, they know their weaknesses. And in the last game against Stars, and not taking anything away from Stars, because they were on form and it was beautiful netball to watch. I personally feel that Wasp were missing a goal attack. It was almost as if the goal attack had gone AWOL. You can't rely on just one shooter, whereas Stars had two shooters going and, delivering shots and nailing them. So, for those who maybe haven't had the opportunity to watch the game, I think they just need to do a little bit of work with the connections in the attack, and they need a goal attack who is prepared to take shots.
That's got to have given Stars a boost, though, that victory. How will that affect them going forward, do you think?
I think it's huge. I'm kind of kicking myself I didn't back Stars because
You did Umanara about
I did Umanara about it because they were always going to get a big win sooner or later. They've been playing some good netball. Liana Leota makes a big difference to them. She just runs that attack end. She gives everyone a lot of confidence. She gets ball into her shooters pretty easily. And so they were always going to be a really tough team. And I do feel for Wasps with the start that they've had for the season, because you get Bath, Mavericks, Thunder in your first three games. Geez, give them a break.
Yeah.
And then they come up against the Stars team that have been building in those first few games. And that just kind of was the game where they tipped it over the edge. I think the worry for Wasps, and I'm not saying this is the case at all, but I look at that team and I'm wondering where the motivation is for some of those guys, because they've won it two times as Wasps. A lot of those girls came from Surrey Storm. They'd won it 2 or 3 times with Surrey Storm. Your average age at Wasps is probably over 30 now with a lot of those players. You've got Rach Dunn, Jade in the past 35 bracket. I'm trying to...
She's grimacing and trying to be politically correct.
I'm trying to not get abusive text messages on my way home.
Ageism.
Yeah, but you've got Hannah Reid and people like that in there as well. And I don't know, for me, I kind of stopped because I'd stopped wanting to get up and train in the morning. Why was I training? I'd played 10 plus years of Super League. I'd won it. I'd played internationally. What is there left, and where's the motivation? And for me, I look at those Wasps guys and I can't see how some of them are motivated by Super League at the minute. and that might be part of the problem, because it's a tough slog pre-season. They had a tough pre-season because they went out to New Zealand and played in that competition. And by the time they got to season, you've done like 15 weeks, and 15 weeks of your 15th year of Super League is a bit
it's a lot, isn't it?
Yeah, so basically you're saying it's kind of like, well, I've been there, I've done that, I've done the achievement a few times, so what am I aiming for?
A little bit, and I'm not saying that this is me just guessing what's potentially going on with some of those guys, because you've got quality all through that team, and to win it 2 years on bounce, then finish runner-up, like, how good that team is. But I don't know, for some of them, what gets them up to go training in the morning. And I'm not saying they don't, they definitely do, but there has to be a sort of a fire burning and a hunger to win this league, because everyone's working so hard and wants it so badly that actually, if you don't quite want it as much as other people, you're not going to get there.
So what do you think then, Sarah, about the discussion that goes around about people saying that they have nothing else? And that's what makes them get up, do what they do, because of the fact that they're almost scared to step away from it, because it's the unknown of what is there for them.
It's like, that's a problem throughout sport, isn't it?
Yeah, but we've been there, and we know that there is still life after sport, and you do carve out a different niche for yourself.
There is, but it's a huge leap to take as well. Like, if you're getting paid to do what you've always done and you love in terms of playing netball, it's hard to go, right, I'm going to step away from this and stop doing it and see what else I can do. And for a lot of people, the identity is tied up in netball or sport, and then to step away, then there needs to be some better planning from players and from the support around players to help them with that, in terms of get things in place so it's not like a leap of faith, it's more of a sort of like gentle step into the
transition into the next phase of the life,
into the next phase. But and for a lot of those girls at Wasp, they have got other things. Rachel Dunn's been working as a lab in labs and as a scientist for years, and Hannah Reid's got a fantastic job with UK Sport and things like that. And I'm not saying they should retire at all. Like that's completely up to them. But for Wasps, they had quite a clear recruitment strategy of recruiting older, experienced players, and that's worked for 3 years. But at what point do you need to get newer players in that freshen that up? Like for us this year, getting a load of young players in has kind of given everyone a bit of a boost of energy, because they come in and they're so excited about everything, and you're going, oh my god, it's 8 a.m. on a Monday morning,
like Duracell bunnies.
I don't want to be here, and they're like, how was everyone's weekend, what did you do? And I'm like, oh god, guys,
well, maybe
I need another coffee.
Maybe then there's a point that could be made that the experience, the wealth of experience that they have on their court and in their roster could be then the women that then now sit on the bench as the advisors.
Yeah, and I mean, there's loads of ways to work it, and you get young players coming through, and like as an older player in the last few years, whilst I was playing, I kind of enjoyed like chatting to the younger players and helping them out, and you are kind of that bit of a mentor role, and there's lots of different ways of doing it, but I think that I'm not, and like I said, I'm guessing here because I actually don't know what's going on in Wasp, and it's none of my business really, but that is potentially one factor playing in there, that those girls have been there and done it, and does losing to Stars really affect their wider netballing career and life? Probably not.
No, I could definitely see where you're both coming from. And I think probably this is a topic that we can widely discuss on a future podcast. So if you've got any questions or comments on that, get them in on all the socials at My Netball Nation. Because I think there's a lot around that, particularly even when you mentioned the fact that it's the unknown of what do we do. Identity for a lot of people is formed around playing. Yeah. So, that in future is something that we could definitely touch on.
I mean, further. I'm probably getting a little bit deep with all this coronavirus thing has just sent me over the edge. I'm getting a bit deep and philosophical. Let's just stick to netball for a minute.
Do you know what? I'm going to bring you both back down to earth, because you did and ah, Sarah, but you both called Wasps.
Yeah.
So cough up, please.
No.
Hey, I tell you what.
I would, but there's no cash now. It's unhygienic.
Handle it.
Hey, I'm accepting bank transfers from my bed. All right, I'll take them. As soon as we're allowed back out again, we're going to have a great night out on all this. All right?
Yeah, yes. And then we'll post it on social media. what we can until Max gets going.
I can't wait for that. Right then. Another listener, Sarah James, tweeted us asking if either of you have changed your mind on who is going to finish in the top 4.
I don't know who I said in the first place.
I think we went with Thunder, Wasps, Mavs. Oh no, Thunder, Bath, Mavs, and yourselves.
So are you changing your minds at all?
Is that what we said?
I'm not changing at this moment in time.
What about you, Sarah? I'll tell you what, Sarah, pretend you never gave you who's going to finish top 4.
Well, I don't think I did. I've got like memory loss on it.
Well, who would you say now then?
Even with Wasps having a not great start, they're hard to write off with the quality they've got. Thunder. Oh, Thunder, Bath. I've got to put Lightning in there.
Thunder, Bath, Lightning.
And then I'm struggling with Mavs and Wasps.
Well, you've got to pick one, Sarah. Da-na-na. By the time she's made her mind up, Max, we'll be allowed back out again.
I like that.
You've got to give me a heads up on these things. You can't just throw decisions like this at me.
You going with Mavs, did you say?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
There's still such a long way to go, should we actually resume normal business, but just on form thus far.
Right, well, we've got them there, so feel free, Sarah Jane, to ask the same question if normality resumes in the next.
I mean, I'll have forgotten again by then.
I know, exactly. Right then, we're going to wrap up this section with a question that's been submitted by another one of our very loyal listeners, Faith. Now, she says, "Great to have this excellent podcast back, plus everyone looking great on camera." Thank you, Faith.
Faith's a liar.
In your Suncorp League review last week, I would add a shout out to Joe Harton being named captain of Giants this year, but quite a blow to them with Seabass injury, sadly. Question. People make much of the Kiwi style and the Aussie style, and despite imports, these styles are quite evident when you watch Suncorp and ANZ. Is there an English style, and is it even something important to develop? All the Super League teams seem pretty different in style to me. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, I'm just curious of your thoughts. Thanks and stay well, Faith Florence. What would you say to that, guys?
I like the fact that we're different.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting if you listen to Tamsin talk about this. She's very adamant that England needs a style and not to try and copy other nations' style. I think England's style is a little bit of a hybrid between the Australian and New Zealand style. I think as a nation we spent a long time trying to be something we're not internationally in terms of trying to play a very Australian style. And, we had a lot of Australian national coaches for a while, so that kind of adds up. And then we had Kiwi influence as well. And I think the interesting thing about English players is I think that there's an ability to do a bit of both. A lot of players can off-mark. A lot of players can go tight man-on-man. We can play short, sharp netball. We've also got people who aren't afraid to let long ball go. So I think that there is a bit of a style, and I think it's developing more with the more confidence that England as a nation gets in how good it is, because then you don't feel a need to imitate and copy and try and worry about other teams as much as just play your own netball.
So you think that's something that's going to continue developing the English style?
Yeah, I think it depends on whoever the coach is and whatever the coach wants to see. But let's not forget that quite a big proportion of our national team players are in Australia, playing their netball. So they are this hybrid that Sarah's talking about. I think it's evident when they then come back home and play for the Roses.
Thank you for that, girls. Well, Faith Florence, I hope that answered your question. Remember, you can get all your questions in on all the socials at My Netball Nation. We'll aim to answer them the following week in the podcast. Now, when plenty of sports took a hit at the weekend with postponements to football and rugby games, the national school finals were able to go ahead. There were some very competitive games and excellent skill on show at Stanborough School, with 3 age groups on show: under 14s, under 16s and under 19s. Huge congratulations to the winners: Berkhamsted School, under 14s, Guildford High School, the under 16s, and Worthing College, the under 19s. To you all, this is, guys, how important for the sport are tournaments and events like the National Schools Finals?
I mean, I loved tournaments. Did you not love tournaments?
They were the best.
Oh.
What was it about them that was so good?
I think having everyone in one place is great. So you kind of get to know lots of different people, and then you meet up with them at the national tournaments, and it was always such a good atmosphere.
Yeah, it was, regardless of the fact that you were, arch enemies on the day. It was the opportunity to play against lots of teams that you would never normally come into contact with. The competition being as it is, it's usually really, really short games. Some teams work better when it's competition status like that, like it's only 7 or 8 minutes, as opposed to the long game. They just don't sustain it over an hour. So I just think the short, sharp, it was quick, it was aggressive, and it was great. I loved it.
And you were talking earlier, Sarah, about, you need to have that fire in your belly.
Yeah.
Those kind of tournaments, I bet it was just a room full of people with that fire.
Well, it would have been a room if they weren't all outside. with like netballs blowing like a metre offline when someone shot.
Who want to be a shooter?
I remember playing at Rodine School. It was it Sussex or somewhere. It's right down south. Rodine School, and it was like the windiest day ever. Like you just like having to do that, like no more than a 2 metre pass because everything else was getting blown away.
What was the score? About 3-4.
Well, thank you for that, girls. Now then, we're going to blast through this last topic before wrapping things up. The ANZ Championship returned at the weekend, and here's the results from the first round. Tactics 41, Pulse 53, Northern Stars 55, Mystics 59, Steel 48, Magic 54. So, Sarah, what do you make of those results?
Well, interesting. I think we all picked the Pulse to win it last week. And
Can I change my mind?
You're changing your mind?
I am, on this one.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, that's a good result for the Pulse because the Tactics have got a strong team this year. They've picked up Tapia Selby-Rickett. She's a great addition for them in the shooting circle. They've got Kimioa Poi. So good win for the Pulse. The Mystics game, I enjoyed that game.
That's who I want to change to.
Yeah. Phoenix Karaka, good friend of mine. Had an awesome game. So good on your fee. And then Grayson Wecky, the shooter, is looking like she is a silver fern in the making.
And little Tui, the two babies in the circle, didn't they do well?
They did so well. And then, shout out to the Magic because I think that's the first time they've beaten Steel in the new ANZ competition. So, that's a big result for them.
Well done, Magic. And Mags, you want to change your mind, right?
Well, just on the strength of that game, and you shouldn't go just on one game, but I was absolutely blown away with the whole Mystics team. And, I know Sarah will correct me if I got this incorrect. Was it Tuieva?
Oh, Tuiava, yeah.
Oh, my Lord. Another one that does witchcraft with the ball. She was just unbelievably good.
Yeah.
Really, really good. I really like her. And not stereotypically the kind of person you'd expect to see playing wing attack, but it just shows how skillful a player can be regardless of who they are, what they look like. So hats off to her.
Yeah, Mags is jumping ship early doors here.
Yeah,
oh, Mags,
I am.
Mags.
Fickle.
Indeed.
Now, the season was set to continue, but behind closed doors, but that's now been suspended for 2 weeks. What do you make of that decision?
I mean, I think it's completely the right decision not to continue at the minute, assuming they're at a similar stage of this whole outbreak that we are. I'm not 100% sure what 2 weeks is going to do. It's a difficult one for players in that scenario because you're going to continue to train for those 2 weeks to make sure you're ready. And you'd say, looking at it from this country and this point of view, in 2 weeks it's probably just going to be worse, and then you're going to delay it. If you continue to delay it for 2 weeks, it's a nightmare for players and coaches. And I think that's part of the reason England Netball took the decision to put it to the end of April, so that it was a little bit of a line in the sand, like, look, people, stop, rest, then you can start again, because this isn't going to get done anytime soon. And I think New Zealand, after this 2 weeks, probably need to have a look at what they're doing and what decisions they're making, because 2 weeks at a time is going to be a nightmare for players.
Yeah, it is. It's difficult, isn't it, for them to be able to keep up with knowing where they're up to with it all. As for Super Netball, they're due to begin the 2020 season on May the 2nd. Now, they announced on Thursday that they're modelling a number of different scenarios regarding the upcoming season. What do you think is the best thing for them to do? Do they play behind closed doors or postpone until a later date?
You see, if we're going to take out the financial implications to every single franchise, linked to netball, then for as far as I'm concerned, if it hasn't started, and this is not going to be a popular answer, I'm sure, but if it hasn't started, why start it? And, for the games that have already been played, if we were like football and we were at the back end of our season and there was the opportunity just to play maybe the last 2 games behind closed doors with no spectators in there, I think they'd have a stronger argument for saying, let's see if we can cram those games into the last couple of weeks. But where we are with our own competition and where they are in New Zealand, having just had the first round, and and Suncorp not even having started, I don't think you need to be a scientist to work out that this is going to go on for quite some time. And Sarah's right, as a head coach of a franchise, somebody needs to be brave enough to tell everybody this is going to go on for at least 6 months so that people can plan and people can move on with their lives.
Yeah, I mean, I'm biased in this situation because Stacey's obviously out there. I am super keen to get her home, and she can't come home because they've not made a decision on what they're doing. And I think for the imports, that's really difficult. People like foreign people now aren't allowed into Australia. Flights are beginning to be grounded out of Australia, and it's a tough time for people who that's not their home. So, like I said, I'm not neutral at all on this topic. But I'd agree with Mags in terms of needing to make a decision. I think the difficulty in Australia is they've been set what I feel is a really dangerous precedent by NRL and AFL continuing to play behind closed doors. Which to me is basically saying we don't care about the health of our players and their families. Because yes, there's an argument for national morale being boosted by sport, and that's a completely fair argument. And sports don't want to go bust, but this isn't about it's
a bigger picture.
This isn't about playing at a game. Yeah. This isn't about saying that traveling to play a match is essential travel. It's not essential travel, and you have to look at the bigger picture, and you have to be the health and well-being of the people involved has to be at the forefront of it. And in Australian sport in general, I think at the minute that's not the case, and I think that's a worry.
No, certainly. Well, get your thoughts in as well at My Netball Nation. What do you think? I just want to know this out of interest. I know, Mags, you mentioned the financial repercussions. Are there any other detrimental things that could happen from the postponement of the games?
I think the reason that for Australia and New Zealand playing behind closed doors is more of an option than it is here is because of the revenue that TV brings in for them. So if they're going to lose ticket revenue and potentially sponsorship revenue, they don't want to lose TV revenue also. But like I said, I think you've got to kind of look a little bit outside of your little bubble of sport and your world and look into the bigger picture. I think for players, it's difficult because if this season ends up not happening around the world, you potentially go into an international season at the end of the year. How do you pick a squad? How do they get fit? There's also a bit of how does anyone care about it? If you've just been through this for 6 months, people do want to play sport and all the rest of it, but
you just draw a line under it and start again.
You almost need to start again. So it's tough. It's really hard for everyone involved.
I think you're absolutely right, guys. It puts everything into perspective, doesn't it? And there are far bigger things and more important things at play than sport, as important as it is to all of us. Right then, before we say goodbye, we're going to finish with a comment from another listener, Roshan. Now, after listening to last week's show and our discussion on the Super Netball season, here's what Roshan said. I've just watched the first episode of the second season of the podcast. However, I felt you missed out talking about the trolling Caitlin Bassett received due to her injury. I know there is a blog post on the website, but I was wondering if you could discuss how to deal with negative comments received as a player and a coach. What could be done to combat this having a negative effect on players' well-being?
Well, first of all, I'm going to say I miss 90% of things now because I locked myself out of Twitter.
Not always a bad thing.
No, and it's not. And I'm not sure if I was hacked or if I've just forgotten all my passwords or what. But I've not been on Twitter for about 2 months now. So anyone who's been trolling me, you're getting no response because I can't get into it. But it has actually been a really good thing for me. So I'm probably not going back on it.
Good for you.
Yeah. But how do you then? Because obviously a lot of people are on social media. Yeah. How do you deal with this negativity? As a coach, how do you advise the others to deal with it?
I think first of all, for people who haven't seen the stuff around Caitlin Bassett, she basically got a load of negative comments around when her knee injury was announced. People were sort of saying, "How do you get injured if all you do is stand there, you don't move?" And just really ridiculous stuff. And what Caitlin Bassett did was basically call them out and say, "This is what I'm receiving. You guys need to get a life," sort of thing, which is one way of doing it, but it takes a lot of strength and a lot of a lot of security in yourself to do, and shout out to Caitlin Bassett for doing that and for
what
highlighting the problem that exists.
Because what normally happens is that if you challenge these trollers or whatever their name is, because I don't even want to say because it's a family show. If you challenge them, they usually come back with something more vicious and poisonous. And I know what I do with them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think generally the argument is just to not give them like the time of day and the airspace and not to react. And it's difficult because it is hurtful, and so sometimes trying to stay away from comments and trying to stay away from social media is the way to go, because no one needs that kind of negativity.
I want to know what Max would do with him. Go on, Max.
Can we do this show after 9 p.m?
Max is in the police, so she knows how to get away with it.
I'm forensically aware. No, but all joking aside, out in the outside world, and if somebody had said something like that and continued, it could be recorded as a hate crime. There's some nasty people out there, and we can actually identify them because I think, they put up their name, so we've got, we can see who it is. And then it comes right back down to where we've been with football, with rugby, with lots of other sports, having the people that have the power to take these people down and not allow them to have the airspace. I know, it's just a disgrace. And if they've ever been injured themselves or ever had anything, horrible happen to them, how would they feel? Unfortunately, these kind of people really don't care.
I think it's just something worth everyone thinking about, though. What you put out there, like,
it has an effect.
You need to remember that everyone's a human. Like Caitlin Bassett, it might be an unachievable level for lots of people, and she might just be so far away from where you're at that you don't even see her as a normal person. She's sitting in her house reading these hateful things, and it hurts just like it hurts anyone else. Yeah. So people just need to be aware that when you're writing that, it's about a person. Like, it's not going into the ether and no one's seeing it.
No, you're right. These are human beings. And I think with social media, for all the good that it does, like you say, this is the ongoing debate, isn't it? That we're always going to have trolls, but it's how you have to deal with them however you see best, however suits you. But like you girls say, before you type anything, just think, because that is a human being on the other side.
Yeah, and I think what we're seeing at the minute in response to coronavirus stuff is how positive social media can be, and that's what we want to see. Like people leaving messages for Seabass, wishing her well and good luck with rehab and all the rest of it. Amazing.
She just needs to just take the positive out of it. Take all the positives, ride that wave, because the positives were like 100% as opposed to this -1%.
And if they doesn't go away, just call Mags.
Yeah, I'll sort it.
Or just do what Sarah does and forget your password. You can't see it.
I'd have forgotten I read it 2 minutes later.
But, sending her best. We want to send Seabass, all our love and all the best for her recovery, because, she is a phenomenal athlete. And, turn a blind eye to it, get on with it.
Absolutely. Sending you lots of love. Now, thanks for getting in touch with us, Shan. Remember, you could do the same as ever. If you are Netball Nation family, have got any questions, just tweet us at MyNetballNation. Drop us an email, hello@mynetballnation.com, and we will do our best to cover these in the next episode. Now, that was some hearty episode, wasn't it, girls?
It's a good job people have got lots of free time.
I know. I was thinking that.
No one's going to work today.
No.
Now, I want to ask 3 things that you're both grateful of. Please, Mags first.
Oh, I'm grateful that I am fit and healthy to the best of my knowledge. Mm-hmm. I'm grateful that, I'm surrounded by beautiful, lovely people who appreciate me and I appreciate them even more. And I'm grateful for the fact that I haven't been doing any bulk buying. I've made sure that when I've gone to the supermarket, I've left enough for everybody else.
Yes, Mags, we salute you. What about you, Sarah?
Yes,
Pressure?
same. I'm grateful that, I'm healthy and well, and I'm grateful for an amazing support network of family and friends who continue to, be positive and make my life better each day. And I'm grateful that I get to see you guys today.
Oh,
yeah. All right, Sarah.
I mean, you're not normally the highlight of my week, but there's been nothing happening.
She hasn't seen anybody else.
I've been indoors.
I'd like to point out that you've chosen the one week I'm not there to say that. So
I know, but I'm looking lovingly at your hazmat photo.
Well, do you know what I'd like to add to that? We are also very grateful to you, our Netball Nation listeners. Thank you so much for listening to another podcast. And if you wanna share what you're grateful for with us, again, you can get in touch with us on all the socials at My Netball Nation. Let us know what 3 things you are grateful for, and we'll read them out on next week's podcast if we can. Thank you so much for listening to Netball Nation, powered by Netball UK. To listen to our podcast, head over to mynetballnation.com and follow us on all the social platforms at My Netball Nation. Also, don't forget to head over to the Netball UK website and use the code NATION10 for 10% off everything before midnight tonight. T's and C's are online at mynetballnation.com. Stay safe, look out for each other, and we are going to be back with a new episode as soon as we can. See you soon, girls.
Bye.
Cheers, bye.